Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's the KDG, and I'm back again with another video. But yesterday, I didn't do my NBA show, so this is my NBA show. Today I'm going to be talking about the NBA power rankings, and you already know what it is. Let's get started with that talk, NBA talk. Okay, so let's talk about it. So what we're going to be talking about today is we're going to be talking about the NBA. We're going to be talking about the teams. We're going to go through each team in the NBA, look at the team standings, look at what each team is ranked, and we're going to rank them from 30 all the way down to number 1. So we're going to go from the worst teams, such as the Detroit Pistons and the Washington Wizards, all the way down to the best teams, such as the Clippers or the Lakers, and work our way down. So starting off, I want to show you guys the NBA standings. Tell me, have you guys recently looked at the NBA standings? I know this channel, we usually talk a lot about football, but I also like to talk about the NBA. NBA is I have a passion of watching the NBA, and I know quite a bit about the NBA. So when it comes to, I like to try to have some diversity on my channel, right? So if you guys don't know, the number 1 team in the East right now, I think, is the Philadelphia 76ers, and the number 1 team in the West is currently the Utah Jazz. Now, I know the Utah Jazz have surprised some teams and jumped up there, but I still don't rate them as much as I do the other teams in the NBA. So yeah, let's show you guys that. Let me show you guys that what it looks like right now, what the standings look like as we speak, right? So as we speak, the NBA standings, you got the Utah Jazz currently sitting up there at the top of the Western Conference, and you have the current leaders of the East as 76ers, Bucks, Sixers, Pacers, Nets, right? But then we're going to work our way down. So we're going to be looking at the worst teams in the NBA first and working our ways up to the best teams, right? So who do you think is the worst team in the NBA, and where do we begin? So let's begin. I think the worst team in the NBA by far the worst team in the NBA, it's not even a joke, is the Washington Wizards. The Washington Wizards have a horrendous record of 3-9 at the beginning of the week, right? This was starting Sunday. They had a record of 3-9. I think they faced Washington recently. I'm not sure if they beat Washington. Let me double check. And it doesn't look like they beat them. It looks like they're now 3-10. Yeah, no, now they're 3-11 actually. So it just goes to show you the Washington Wizards are one of the worst teams in the NBA. They have a disgruntled superstar in none other than the man himself, Bradley Beal. So what are you going to do? These guys are not happy. They're not sitting well. They're not nowhere near the top of the league, and then that's just what's going on with Detroit. Detroit right now is Detroit's just as bad. So we'll get on to Detroit in a second. But Washington Wizards, Russell Westbrook's had injury issues. They've played the least amount of games in the NBA, having constant games due to COVID-19, having to suspend constant games. They have about 10 behind. They're behind by so many games right now. They've only played a total of 14 games, and the NBA is already a third of the way down. So it just goes to show you that the Washington Wizards have a massive issue with COVID, and also with the squad that they have on the court. So that's going to be an issue throughout the rest of the season. Next, we go to the Detroit Pistons. Now, Dwayne Casey's doing his best to get the Detroit Pistons back on track, but of course, with the amount of players that they have injured constantly, with Blake Griffin being out all the time, you have the guy like Derrick Rose constantly getting injured, and just not having a good enough squad in general. Like, their best player is Jeremy Grant, who is who was like the fifth or sixth option on the Denver Nuggets last year. And the backup center, Mason Plumlee, who was the backup center in Detroit last year, in Denver last year, is now their starting center. It just goes to show you that these guys are a bottom barrel team. They're working their way up. They've currently had 18 games played, only won 4, lost 14 of them, and it's just absolutely terrible. Honestly, you don't know what to do when you're talking about the Detroit Pistons. Detroit Pistons this year, they currently don't have any good performances that I can note off the top of my head. Like, yes, they beat the 76ers. That was a big shock, of course. They beat the Miami Heat. Yes, that was a little bit of a shock. But besides that, honestly, the Detroit Pistons have been one of those teams at the bottom of the barrel, not doing anything of note with the players that they have: Jeremy Grant, Josh Jackson, Delon Wright. Sadiq Bey has been surprised. Mason Plumlee's looked good, but honestly, I don't think they're going to go anywhere this season. They're just going to struggle at the bottom of the barrel, and they're going to be one of those teams working their way up for a little bit while. They might as well tank for Caden because they're set up to tank. Their team's already halfway down at the bottom, so they might as well just continue to tank the rest of the way. Now, going on to the next team. The next team is the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Minnesota Timberwolves have had a major issue this season with players constantly being injured, especially their best player. And you already know who that is, Karl-Anthony Towns. Now, with Karl-Anthony Towns being injured majority of the season and missing games here and there with so many different issues, and also now we're hearing, of course, that he does have some mental health issues also, so he might be even taking more time out. Like, I feel sorry for the Minnesota Timberwolves. They thought that they were building something. They thought they were working towards building something good with Ricky Rubio and D'Angelo Russell and Karl-Anthony Towns and all these other guys that they have. But it just seems like they went backwards. Now, obviously, they traded Andrew Wiggins for D'Angelo Russell and gave away some picks in order to get that deal over the line. And it looks like that's going to backfire on them now, because I don't know if they're going to have enough tools to continue to grow as a team and as a franchise. Now, Anthony Edwards was their big pickup in the summer as a rookie. And you know what? With the number 1 overall pick, Anthony Edwards, he does not look like the best player in this draft at all. He's far from ready to be an NBA player, Anthony Edwards, that is. Anthony Edwards is just not good enough yet to be an NBA player, in my opinion. And you know what? With the struggles of Anthony Edwards and the injuries of Karl-Anthony Towns and D'Angelo Russell trying to carry the load, you've seen that new people have had to show up, like Naz Reid putting up a performance in addition to Vanderbilt doing his thing. You know, it's just hard work, and they're gonna have to work hard to get themselves out of the rut. And in a Western Conference, nobody's nice to you. They don't take friendly. There's no friendly games in the Western Conference. And you know what? Another team that knows that quite well is the Sacramento Kings. Now, the Sacramento Kings are another Western Conference team that have been struggling, and they currently have a record of 7-10. They have had some shock wins. And they've also had some big losses this season, right? So Sacramento Kings have beaten the likes of the Pacers, also beaten the likes of the Bulls. Obviously, they're supposed to beat the Bulls anyways. They did shock Denver Nuggets and beat the Denver Nuggets. And you know what? Sacramento Kings do have a good team. They have a good team, and they also have a really good rookie in Halliburton, De'Aaron Fox. Hassan Whiteside obviously doesn't get to play anymore. You got guys like Rashawn Holmes, who's a revelation as a player ever since he left the Sixers, right? And you know what? I'll tell you this about these guys, Sacramento Kings. They were touted to be pushing for a playoff berth, but you know what? They're nowhere near that. They're off the mark. They're still going to be a lottery team again this year, it seems like, and they're just down there at the bottom. They're the 27th overall team in this power rankings this week, and you know what? I don't think they're going to get any better. I just don't see how they're going to get better as a squad throughout the rest of the season. Yes, they could still catch up and maybe get a couple wins here and there, but of course, it just doesn't seem like there's enough balance in the squad. Buddy Hield has been performing as he's been. Rashawn Holmes outperforming his expectations. De'Aaron Fox is outperforming his expectations. Marvin Bagley had early problems with the squad, but now it's just like, I don't know how they all mesh as a team. And the Western Conference, you know how tough the Western Conference is. You need a superstar to set you above and beyond everybody else, and they just don't have a superstar. They have a lot of good players, a lot of good role players, but they just don't have that piece to set them over the edge. And you know what, Sacramento, they might be a lottery team again. They could push into the playoff spots, but we don't know. We don't know with the Sacramento Kings. That's just who they are. They're always in and amongst it. And you know what? They might as well tank themselves, because if they get one more piece to that puzzle, they could just become a good team again. Look at the Phoenix Suns. Now, moving on to the next team, Orlando Magic. Orlando Magic were a playoff team last year in the Eastern Conference, and you know what? No, it wasn't last year. It was a year before that they were a playoff team. No, last year they were a playoff team. They lost to the Milwaukee Bucks. What am I saying? Yeah, the Orlando Magic's They look like they're always fighting for that 8th seed. They look like they're that team that's just always in amongst it. Obviously, Jonathan Isaac's injured for the remainder of the season. Evan Fournier just came back from injury. Nikola Vukovic has been amazing this whole season. He's been putting up monster numbers week in, week out. Obviously, Markelle Fultz suffered an injury and he's out for the remainder of the season, which hurts. But they've had the emergence of this young rookie from North Carolina in Cole Anthony, putting in work, carrying the squad off, carrying the squad's load as a starting point guard, especially now that Michael Carter Kid Gilchrist is also out. Michael Carter, what's his name? Whatever his name is, Michael Carter Gilchrist is also out. Terrence Ross always putting in his numbers. You know what Terrence Ross does? Terrence Ross and Evan Fournier, they're just gunners. They're just going to constantly shooting up the ball, throwing it up there. To me, the Orlando Magic are going to put in their work. They're going to do what they got to do. And these guys are just the Orlando Magic, man. They're gonna be fighting for an 8th seed, fighting in amongst those teams at the in between lottery and 8th seed. They'll probably get into a play-in spot if they try to get into playoffs, and that's just what the Orlando Magic are right now. They're in the middle of trying to figure out if they're gonna be a top team or if they're gonna try to push to try to get into a tanking spot. That's what they are. They're nowhere near. They're closer to tanking than they are to getting to the Pacers or the Brooklyn Nets right now. That's the reality of the situation, right? Now moving on to the next team. Oh, sadly, the Pelicans. The Pelicans are New Orleans Pelicans are supposed to be this team that's supposed to be playoff ready this season. They're 6-10. They're supposed to have a team with Zion, LaMelo Ball, what do you call it? JJ Redick, Eric Bledsoe, Jason Hayes, all these guys that they have. And they also acquired Steven Adams in the summer. Like, they have a really, really good core of a team. Just let me name these guys again. Lonzo Ball, Zion, Ingram, Steven Adams, JJ Redick, Eric Bledsoe. They have a starting 5 plus one. They already have a 6-man roster that's deep. Then you also add in Josh Hart, Nickeil Alexander. Like, these guys have a good team. It's just, it doesn't mesh. It does not mesh. And they're already talking about moving JJ Redick and Lonzo Ball out of the picture completely. They're already talking about getting rid of JJ Redick and Lonzo Ball. And it's to the point where they're saying Lonzo Ball is not going to make it, for them at least. They want to move him on and make Eric Bledsoe their starting point guard and try to get an asset back in return that can fit better with the pieces of the Ingrams and the Zions. They want to build around Ingram and Zion. Ingram and Zion yesterday just dropped 30 each. And they still struggle to win the game. Like, they struggle to win games. You know what I mean? These guys are not the best team. They're not built well. They're not organized well. Of course, they beat the Wizards by 20 easily, but they just lost the other night to the they just lost the other night to the Timberwolves, right? The night before that, they lost to the Jazz 2 times in a row. They almost lost to the Kings. They lost to the Lakers convincingly. So this is not a team that's ready yet. I'm not going to say they can tank. I'm saying they can still push to get into a playoff seed. If they trade Lonzo or JJ for something useful, you never know. They could get something back in return that could help them as a franchise going forward. But right now, the New Orleans Pelicans are the 25th team in this rankings for me, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. They need to figure out. Actually, I think it can change if they do find a way to go trade for Bradley Beal, but I don't think they have the pieces to go trade for Bradley Beal. Now, next team is none other than the Thunder. The Thunder are a team that are pretty well organized, actually. Like, I like the Thunder. I like how they've set themselves up for the future, and they have a lot of good pieces right now also. Right? They've done a lot of trades recently. They've gotten rid of a lot of pieces, and they have a young core with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Luke Dort. Obviously, they have some older vets like Horford. They also have Darius Bazley, who I really like. George Hill is another vet. They basically told Trevor Ariza, stay home. They're like, don't come to the arena. Just stay home. We don't need you. Just stay home. And you know what? They're giving their young kids like Isaac Roby and then Diallo, Mike Muscala. I don't get why you have Mike Muscala in the team. You might as well not play him because he's nowhere near good enough, and he's never going to be like a super talent in the NBA, or even close to like a role player in the NBA. He's end of the bench, 12th man roster, the 12th man in the roster kind of guy, and he gets some PT sometimes too. But yeah, I think these guys are good enough to at least get into a play-in spot in the West, but they might tank. But even if they don't tank, they still have the Clippers picks for the next like 20 years due to that Chris Paul deal. So hey, I don't think the Thunder are going anywhere anytime soon. I think they're going to be in and amongst the play-in and the lottery. That's where they're going to be. They're just going to be sitting in that middle spot, trying to grab as many assets as possible as they already have been. Now, moving on to the next team. The next team is the Charlotte Hornets. You know what? I got to put my hands up, say I owe Gordon Hayward an apology. I said Gordon Hayward cannot do this anymore. I thought Gordon Hayward was done. I thought Gordon Hayward's days of playing basketball at the top level after his Boston career was going to be down the drain. I owe him an apology. Next person I owe an apology, LaMelo Ball. I thought LaMelo Ball was not good enough in the NBA. I thought he was still young, still inexperienced, still to the point where he couldn't actually get a bucket. I thought this guy was not good at shooting. I thought he couldn't do it. I thought he couldn't do it at the NBA level yet, because I seen him play and I'm like, you know what? He's too raw. But little did I know he was still going to be one of the top rookies this year. Little did I know he was going to drop getting triple doubles, youngest player in the NBA history to get triple doubles. Little did I know he was going to be walking into a team and fighting to get a starting spot this early in his career. Obviously, Cody Zeller getting injured early in the season has affected their rotation. Bismack Biyombo stepped right in and shown that he's able to help out and carry part of the load. He did a good job there. But yeah, all in all, these guys, Charlotte, they're in a situation right now with Gordon Hayward, LaMelo Ball, Terry Rozier, Devontae Graham. They have a lot of ball handlers, but they don't have a lot of other options. Yes, Miles Bridges looks like a good player, and PJ Washington looks like a good player, but I think they should maybe just completely take Bismack and Cody Zeller out of the lineup and make PJ Washington their center, make Miles Bridges their power forward, Gordon Hayward their small forward, play either one of Rozier or Devontae Graham as the 2, and play LaMelo Ball as the 3, as a point guard, right? Because in my opinion, you have the two shooters in Gordon Hayward and whichever one of Rozier or Graham you play. LaMelo Ball can be the ball handler. Miles Bridges can be the slasher, and you have the big man in PJ Washington. I don't think Bismack and Cody Zeller have I think they've circummed their requirements. You don't need them anymore. You can just use them as bench options to bring in defense off the bench. But yeah, that's enough about the Charlotte Hornets, right? Moving on to 22. Who's number 22? It is none other than the Houston Rockets. The Houston Rockets have now traded away James Harden. James Harden has now left the Houston Rockets, and now they have to focus on building guys like they have to focus on them on the young guys that they have going on, like Chris Wood. Chris Wood is absolutely amazing. Chris Wood could lead the could lead the Houston Rockets into the playoffs in a couple of years' time as their best player. He is actually one of the better bigs in the NBA. I don't know why Detroit let him go. They're absolutely ridiculous. Then they also got Eric Gordon still, who can get buckets anytime. DeMarcus Cousins needs to figure out what he is in the NBA, because he's kind of still confused if he's still trying to get 20 and 10 every night, or if he can even be serviceable in the NBA. John Wall, is he back? Is he not? We have to find out. In addition to other players that they have in their team that are okay, like Daniel House. Victor Oladipo obviously got traded from the Pacers. He's played a couple games, looked serviceable also. So they have a decent team, but it looks like they might be in tank mode themselves. I don't think they're going to be getting into a playoff spot anytime soon, especially in the West. That's never forgiving. You know what it is in the West. The Western Conference is never easy. But yeah, moving on after this, we're moving on to, let's go to the 21st, the Chicago Bulls. Now, the Chicago Bulls, where do I start? Chicago Bulls have themselves an absolute baller in Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine is absolutely surpassed anything that they would have imagined when they traded for him. When they traded Jimmy Butler, they got Zach LaVine in return. Little did they know Zach LaVine at this point would be on par with Jimmy Butler at scoring. Defensively, he's not there yet. But when it comes to scoring, he's on par or has surpassed Jimmy Butler in scoring. He can score buckets at will. Zach LaVine is an absolute stud. He's probably one of the best NBA slashers and getting at the basket by far, easily. Patrick Williams, young rookie that they've drafted, done well. Kobe White looks like he could be a serviceable NBA point guard in the near future. Larry Markkinen looks like a good stretch four. Gary Temple always is Gary Temple. Wendell Carter, when fit, when healthy, he looks like a good center in the NBA. Otto Porter, they paid way, way, way over the odds for Otto Porter. I don't know why they did that, but it makes no sense. Thaddeus Young, always serviceable. Denzel Valentine, could do better than him, but I don't know. Devon Dotson, I think he's on this. He's not even on their team, bro. He's on the Cavaliers now. What am I talking about? But yeah, they have some decent pieces. But to me, they go as far as Zach LaVine and Markin and take them. Obviously, Kobe White adds in some buckets here and there, but Kobe White is not taking over games for me. Kobe White is still very inconsistent and very young. They need more from him, hopefully in the near future. But as of right now, that's where the Chicago Bulls stand, right? Now moving on to Miami Heat. Miami Heat. Let's talk about the Heat. So the Heat, Jimmy Butler, has been injured a lot lately. They've been completely destroyed by COVID, and they currently have a record of 6-11, right? Miami Heat couldn't even serviceably put up a proper team the other day, right? Kendrick Nunn has come back and shown that he's been a big part of this. Duncan Robinson's been doing a big part. But you know what? They haven't had Jimmy Butler for majority of the season. Tyler Hero's recently been out a lot. Even Bam has missed games due to COVID. So this team has not actually gotten to see their best players all on the court at the same time in a long time. So I can't even give you an adequate analysis of the squad because we haven't seen them all play together in a long time. Hopefully they can all get together, because when they are together with Jimmy Butler, Tyler Hero, Bam, Duncan Robertson, and Kelly Olynyk, that is a really, really, really good squad. In addition to the other pieces that they have, such as Avery Bradley, you got Pierce has shown up, Kendrick Nunn, Iguodala, Goran Dragic, Myers Leonard. Just I could name so many people. And Udonis Haslem still on the squad. He doesn't play at all. Don't worry, he's just a vet. But yeah, I don't think the Miami Heat are going to go anywhere. I think they're going to still be I still think they're going to be a playoff team. I still think they're going to be up and amongst the top 8 teams in the Eastern Conference at the end of it. It's just right now they're struggling because they haven't been able to all get on the court at the same time, right? Now moving on to the 19th team, the Knicks. The Knicks have been a surprise package this year, with Tom Thibodeau doing his job, doing the best he can with those Knicks. You know what? He's running his guys dry. Like, they're playing 40, 70 minutes a night, 40 minutes a night, 36 minutes a night. RJ Barrett playing the best basketball of his career. Then you got Obi Toppin's been injured majority of the time. Quickly's shown up quickly in the NBA as a rookie. He's shown he can put up buckets. Julius Randle, absolute stud, putting up 20, 10, and 5 every game almost, right? Austin Rivers, very, very, very inconsistent, but can get you a bucket whenever needed. So Mitchell Robinson has been doing better, staying out of foul trouble, doing a better job staying out of foul trouble, trying his best to stay in the game so he can help out his teams. That's been a good part. That's been a big part of that. Now Alec Burke injured in and out. Nerlens Noel, big part of the defense, doing his job defending and always blocking those shots, stealing those passes, always being a troublemaker on the defensive end for them. Big part of that. And you know what? Alfred Payton, he's going to lose his starting spot soon too quickly, but for now, he's been playing decent. So yeah, the Knicks, as long as Tom Thibodeau is their coach, they're going to be set up well, and they're going to do their best to be disruptors in the Eastern Conference. So we'll see where they are. We'll see what they do, and let's keep it moving, people. Let's keep it moving. Yeah. Next we got the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Cleveland Cavaliers actually shocked a lot of teams at the beginning of the season when they came out and they just came out of the gate firing. Like, they came out of the gate hot. Why is this? Okay, there we go. They came out of the gate hot, Cleveland, and now their record has kind of cooled down a little bit. They haven't been as hot lately. They're still 9-9. They're 500, exactly 500. Yes, the Cleveland Cavaliers are a decent team this year, and they have so many options. They have so many options. Unlike any other team, they have just big men alone. They have Kevin Love, Larry Nance, JaVale McGee, Andre Drummond, and they recently traded for Jared Allen. The Toronto Raptors don't have a serviceable big man. The Cleveland Cavaliers have 5 in a league where you don't need a big man anymore. It makes no sense to me, guys. It absolutely makes no sense to me what they're doing, how they're doing it, why they're doing it the way they're doing it. It just doesn't make any sense. But yeah, that is the Cleveland Cavaliers, and they're currently in 18th in the ranks for me. Yes, the Cleveland Cavaliers have themselves some good players. And you know what? Colin Sexton has taken the step up. He's taken a big leap forward. He could be an all-star in the coming future. Darius Garland, wow, he's taken a step forward also. I'm not even going to lie. Larry Nance leading the league in steals, right? And Isaac Okoro should be one to watch for the future. I'm telling you guys, watch him closely. He's going to be one to watch in the future. Next, we got the Atlanta Hawks. Now, the Atlanta Hawks kind of confuse me. They confuse me a lot. I get very confused when I hear about the Atlanta Hawks, because there's something about the Atlanta Hawks that just doesn't look right to me. At times, the Atlanta Hawks can look like they don't know who's gonna get a bucket for them, and then there's times where you feel like every single person on the court can get a bucket for them, because these guys have some ballers. They got Trae Young, who can ball. Don't lie. Clint Capella, one of the best rebounders in the league. Bogan Bogdanovic, who was almost went to the Bucks to be that 6th man, but now he's on their team. He's like the 7th option. Danilo Gallinari, who gets buckets everywhere he goes. Cam Reddish and Hunter, who are both amazing two-way players. Then you got Kevin Huerter, who can score a bucket. You got Tony Snell, who doesn't do anything. Chris Dunn, who's a good backup guard. They also got Rajon Rondo, that leadership and captain who can come into the team immediately. The Atlanta Hawks have a good enough team to make the playoffs in the Eastern Conference. Guaranteed lock for me to make the playoffs in the Eastern Conference. Hopefully they do, because I want to see them. But to me, they need to figure out what they're going to do with John Collins, because John Collins' contract is going to be heavy on that whole team until it's sorted out. He's their 2nd best player, and in my opinion, they need to figure out a way to keep him long term. Hopefully they can keep him long term, because he's an absolute stud of a player. I like John Collins, and I think he's gonna do really good for them. Next, we got the Toronto Raptors. My Toronto Raptors have been absolutely terrible this season. I'm used to these guys being so good week in, week out, every year, but this year they're 11 and they've already lost 11 games out of their first 18 games. So they're 7 and 11, right? The Toronto Raptors are absolutely stressed me out. I'm not gonna lie to you guys; they've absolutely stressed me out. Kyle Lowry, he's doing his best, but Pascal Siakam is a shell of himself. Like, what are you doing, Pascal? Yes, Chris Boucher is showing up, and you know what? OG showing up, but we have no big men. Aaron Baines can't do it on his own. Chris Boucher is not a big man. He's 6'6". Pascal Siakam is not big enough either. We're depending on guys. We're depending on small forwards and power forwards to carry us in the big man slots, and we just don't have enough big men to actually carry us over the hump. Well, I don't think we're going to be able to do this long term. The Toronto Raptors are going to be struggling all season. It's going to be a tough year for us as Raptors fans, and you know what? Hopefully we can get ourselves sorted, but it's just going to be a tough year all year round for the Raptors fans. Yeah, I'm getting ready for a long season, guys. I'm getting ready for a long season. Now, moving on to the San Antonio Spurs are 15th. 15th is the San Antonio Spurs, just in the middle of the Western Conference right now. Then they're ticking away. They're still in the playoff seed. They're 10 and 8. DeMar DeRozan's putting in work every single week. They have DeJounte Murray putting in work. LaMarcus Aldridge, Kendall Johnson's showing up as a super player. He's going to be one for the future. He could be their next Kawhi Leonard, the big discovery that they made. Lonnie Walker's putting in work week in, week out. Patty Mills showing why he's a disruptor and just scores points every day. Jakob Poeltl is getting shine sometime whenever LaMarcus Aldridge is out. And you know what? Rudy Gay has turned into a serviceable option in the NBA again, understanding that he's no longer the best player on the team, but can just be a role player that just gets buckets for the team whenever they need it. And you know what? The San Antonio Spurs, I think they're a guaranteed playoff spot, or at least play-in spot for the Western Conference. That's what I think about the San Antonio Spurs. Now moving on to the Warriors. Warriors, come out and play. So the thing about the Warriors is they can't defend. They cannot defend. They cannot defend at all. Look at that. Look at that defensive rating. They're giving up more points than they're getting week in, week out. So that is a problem. You cannot try to win games in the NBA and have your opponents scoring 110 points on you week in, week out, every single game. That is a problem for the Warriors. They need to figure out how to do that. But the thing is, they have such a high-powered offense that no matter what, they're somehow winning these games 130 to 110, 130 to 111, 127 to 128. Like they're winning these games just by the skin of their teeth every single week, because Steph Curry is still an absolute monster. Draymond Green looks like a shell of himself. He does not look good at all. But Eric Paschall, Kelly Oubre, Andrew Wiggins, these guys have started to put in more work. And James Wiseman hopefully can carry the load as a big man for them, because Draymond Green has been absolutely terrible. And you know what? Even if one of their guys gets injured, I still believe Damian Lee could put in some numbers for this team. So let's see what they got going for them. 14th is the Warriors. Now 13th. Let's go to 13. Who's 13? The Dallas Mavericks. Now the Dallas Mavericks have had injuries, to say the least. They started the season with Porzingis coming back from an injury that he had surgery from in the summer, and he missed the first couple weeks, and then he's recently come back and he's been playing really well. Now they also have Josh Richardson out, right? Which means they're gonna have more and more other guys trying to get chip in and put in work. And you know what? They have had guys put in work. They've had Jalen Brunson put in some work. They've had Trey Burke put in some work. Maxi Kleber's been out due to COVID, I think. Dwight Powell's been out. Even Tim Hardaway Jr. has had time out, right? But to me, Luka Doncic has been carrying the squad, doing his job, and it's just, they play by committee. They're a good team. They play good basketball, and you know what? They play as a team, and each person knows their role. They know the hierarchy, and you don't have issues. There's no egotistical issues with the Dallas Mavericks. And you know what? You got to respect the Dallas Mavericks for who they are. They're a really good team, and I rate the Dallas Mavericks. So big up to the Dallas Mavericks, right? Now moving on to the next team I think it's the Indiana Pacers. Yeah, the Indiana Pacers. The Pacers. Now the Pacers. The thing about the Pacers is, you guys need to know something. The Pacers have so many options. They can kill you in a game with so many different people. I absolutely love the Pacers. I think the Pacers are probably the third best team in the Eastern Conference, by far. Like, I think they're better than the Nets right now and the Celtics, just because of the pure options they have. Like, they traded for LeVert. LeVert now sadly has cancer. Hopefully he gets better. But of course, even without LeVert, they still have, let me just name some of these players. They have Sabonis, all-star. Miles Turner leading the league in blocks. TJ Warren, injured, but averaged 20 points in the bubble. They have Michael Brogdon, absolutely killing it. Could be an all-star. They have Doug McDermott, absolute shooter, shoots straight out the gym. Jeremy Lamb, he's a starter on majority NBA teams. Jeremy Lamb, let's be clear. Justin Holiday, he's a starter on almost every other team who needs a shooting guard or a small forward. He doesn't start on this team. TJ McCollum, serviceable backup point guard, right? Aaron Holiday, very serviceable backup point guard right there, right? Goga Budensia, and then that's pretty much it. But when you think about it, most teams in the NBA have eight good players. These guys got like 10 good players. Like, they got really good. They got two full squads, two full starting fives that they could put on the NBA floor that would still put in damage. That's very serviceable, and that's very talented. And you know what? Their defense is really good too, because they have one of the best defenders in the league in Miles Turner. So no matter what, the Indiana Pacers, 12th, big up to the Pacers. Keep doing your thing, Pacers. Now moving on to the Sixers. I mean, the Suns. Woo! The Suns. The Suns have taken the biggest leap. They went from a team that wasn't even in the playoffs last season to now almost pretty much guaranteed in the playoffs. Hopefully, I think this year. Right now, their current record is 8-8. They're 500. They're just outside the 8th seed. They're the 9th seed right now. But I think these guys are going to make the playoffs just based on the back of Chris Paul and his winning mentality. Chris Paul has absolutely infected these guys with the desire and the passion and the energy to win games and to go out every single week now. I think they can do it. I genuinely believe that these guys can do it. And with Devin Booker, Chris Paul, and DeAndre Ayton, they have a good core of players with also Mikal Bridges, Jay Crowder, and then even go deeper into a team with Campaign, Galloway, you got Dario Saric, you got Frank Kaminsky. They have a deep team, and I think they could do some damage in the Western Conference. Let's see. We'll wait and see. But for now, I believe in the Phoenix Suns, surprisingly, for the first time in like 6 years. Next, the Memphis Grizzlies. The Memphis Grizzlies are hot and cold, to say the least. They go as far as John Morant goes. Without John Morant, they kind of struggled, but of course, they kept themselves afloat just a little bit outside of the playoffs. They're currently in the 10th seed. They got themselves John Morant. Jared Jackson was out. Jared Jackson has yet to play a game, right? Grayson Allen has shown up. Grayson Allen, where the hell did this guy come from? He was the troublemaker from Duke, the guy who used to kick people. Yeah, he's back. He's putting in work in the NBA for Memphis, guys. And also JV putting in work, right? You got Tillman doing his thing. Kyle Anderson. Woo! Kyle Anderson balling, guys. Not even joking. Balling. Absolute balling. Dylan Brooks scoring some points here and there. But yeah, I think they got a good team. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I think they're just going to be outside the playoffs. But yeah, Memphis is supposed to be a good team. So we'll wait and see. We'll give them a wait and see approach. Yeah. But you know what the Western Conference is like. The teams in Western Conference always have more teams higher up the ranks because it's tougher to do well in the West. Now, the Portland Trailblazers. CJ McCollum's injured, people. CJ McCollum is injured, and his injury is definitely going to affect the future of the Portland Trailblazers. But in the recent history, whenever one of those guys on Portland get injured, the other one carries the load. Like when Damian got injured, CJ carried the load. Now that CJ's injured, guess who's carrying the load? Damian Lillard. And you know who else has shown up? This young guy comes out of nowhere. Anthony Simons starts putting up buckets. Guy's averaging like three threes a game now since CJ's been injured, getting buckets after buckets after buckets. Also, Yusuf Nurkic is injured. Guess who shows up? Enes Kanter. Enes Kanter is like, you know what? Don't worry. I got the team on my back. He's getting 10 plus rebounds every single game. Easy. 10 and 10 every game. 10 and 10. Enes Kanter. And you know what? Portland, they're just never going to go away. Robert Covington doesn't fit the system when it comes to scoring. Like, he's not getting the best shots. Derek Jones Jr. is not getting the best shots. But the way they're set up as a team now, they're set up a lot better to win in the future. So, Portland Trailblazers, I'll make them the 9th seed. I'll make them the 9th seed. I think they're a good enough team to be that 9th seed. Do a little bit more damage than they usually used to. Now, moving on to the 8th seed. 8th seed is the Brooklyn Nets, okay? The Brooklyn Nets are a little bit more vulnerable than we thought. The Brooklyn Nets are not as good as we thought they were. They're not the team that we thought they were. Let's be honest. Yes, you got James Harden, Kawhi Leonard. You got James Harden, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. But now, what have you done to yourselves? What have you done? DeAndre Jordan's your only center. Sorry, people. DeAndre Jordan's your only center. You got Joe Harris. You got guys who can shoot. You got Timothy Lakuakuro, whatever his name is. I forgot how to pronounce his name. You got Jeff Green, but Landry Shamet. But you got no big men. You need to go find yourselves a big man in the buyout market because DeAndre Jordan by himself defensively cannot hold your team down. You guys the Brooklyn Nets need to find another big man, serviceable big man, because DeAndre Jordan can only take them so far. Jeff Green, even playing at the 4, doesn't make sense to me. But I guess he has to because he's the only other defensive person on their bench. Like, they really don't have a team that can actually. They don't even have a real good team. Like, They have 3 super good superstars and then nothing else. That's what the Brooklyn Nets are. So they're going to make the playoffs, obviously. They're going to be a 5th seed or 4th seed, at best 3rd seed if they can overtake the Pacers, but that's it. That's it, right? Now the Boston Celtics. Boston Celtics are 7th. The reason why Boston Celtics are 7th, because they even with all the absences that they've had and all the guys out, they're still in and amongst there. They're 10-7. They have a good team. They have a lot of good players, and they got players that can get you buckets and defend, right? And they have a lot of big options. They have a squad from start to finish. Every single piece to the puzzle fits perfectly. You got yourself Kemba Walker, a guard that can get you a bucket anytime and shoot the lights up, right? You got Marcus Smart, one of the best defenders in the league, pest of a player. It can do everything. Then you got what do you call it? Then you got guys like Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown putting in work from both ends. Jaylen Brown, the leap that Jaylen Brown has taken this season, absolutely amazing what he's done this season. Absolutely amazing. You gotta love what he's done this season. You can't talk bad about Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown has been one of the best players this season by far. Then you got Tristan, you got Tice, you got Robert Woods, you got Teague, you got Grant, you got all these other guys, Semi Ojeleye. They just have so many pieces. Carson Edwards, and don't forget the rookie Peyton Pritchard. Ooh, Peyton Pritchard's a baller, right? Now, moving on from the Boston Celtics. Moving to the Denver Nuggets. Denver Nuggets are ranked 6th on this ranking, but Denver Nuggets have been a letdown so far when it comes to getting out the gate. I thought they were going to be destroying teams. You know what? Their 11-4-7 record is actually like a letdown. They're 4 games above 500, and they could actually have won more games. They lost some of their games surprisingly to bad oppositions, right? Jokic has been one of the best players in the NBA this season. Jamal Murray putting in work. Michael Porter injured for half the games, and you know what? They haven't even missed him. They replaced him with JaMychal Green. What do you call it? Paul Millsap hasn't even done anything for them this season, and you know what? They don't even need him to. They just have so much options from their 2 best players being amazing to Michael Porter Jr. just having to be serviceable, JaMychal Green putting in some work, Gary Harris putting in some work here and there. I haven't even had to worry about any of these guys stressing them out because they're not getting overworked. You got Will Barton putting in his 10 points here, Gary Harris putting his 10 points there, Michael Porter putting in his couple points there and there. If Michael Porter can take the leap from regular NBA player to like on the cusp of most improved all-star level, then they can take that leap. But I don't see them doing that. I think if they were to make a trade for Bradley Beal and get Michael Porter in that deal, then they could win the West. But as of right now, they're just set up to be a really good playoff team and not to win the West. That's the problem with them. That's the problem with the Denver Nuggets, guys. Unfortunately. Now, moving on to the next team, the Milwaukee Bucks. They're just boring, man. The Milwaukee Bucks are boring me. I'm bored of their success. Like, these guys are just too good. The Milwaukee Bucks are just too good. Giannis, every game he gets to rest because they're just blowing teams out. They're blowing teams out. Look at this. They beat the Raptors yesterday. That's my team. They blew us. They beat us by like 10 points at the end, right? They beat the Hawks by like 10 points. They lost to Lakers. They beat the Dallas Mavericks by like 3 points. They beat the Pistons by like 10 points. They beat the Orlando Magic by 20. Cleveland Cavaliers by 10. Oh man. Pistons again by 15. Pistons again by 10. Bulls by 26. No, 30. So they're just whooping people's asses. The Milwaukee Bucks to me are the best team in one of the best teams in the NBA. That's why they made it to this top 5. But they're just outside because they haven't shown me that they can do it against the better teams. They've faced some of the better teams, and they've also lost. Like, look at this. From when they faced, where is it? Okay, so when they faced the Lakers, they lost, right? When they faced the Nets, they lost. Okay, when they faced the Utah Jazz, they lost, right? When they faced the Heat, they lost. They even lost to the Knicks and the Celtics. So they've lost a lot of games to good opposition. They've beaten down a lot of the Eastern Conference shit teams. So that's where they picked up a lot of their points. But big up to the Bucks, man, holding on to Giannis. That was massive. Now the Sixers, the best team in the Eastern Conference, no debating. One of the best defenses in the NBA, holding teams to less than 106 points per game, right? They have defensive monsters all over the court. An MVP candidate in none other than Embiid himself. Embiid is an MVP candidate. No debates. No debates. No holds bar. Ben Simmons, still one of the better two-way players. He still has to improve on his shot. Seth Curry putting in numbers. Dwight Howard is probably one of the best backup big men in the NBA. No joke. Then you got Tobias Harris putting in work. Tyrese Maxey, defensive beast off the bench. Shake Milton, defensive offensive juggernaut off the bench. They just got a good team from front to finish. I think this team right now, this year, this is the best chance to get into a top playoff seed for the Sixers and possibly get to the NBA Finals if they can find a way to get past the Celtics, the Nets, and the Pacers. They would be my second favorites after the Nets. But even though I don't rate the Nets that highly, you still got to give the Nets the edge over the Sixers. But the Sixers are the better team. The Bucks, they got to show it to me before I can give them the respect that they deserve. The Bucks have to show it to me. Now, moving on. After that, the Utah Jazz. Utah Jazz have the best record in the NBA. Utah Jazz have the best record in the NBA. 14-4. The Utah Jazz have absolutely one of the most dangerous defenses in the NBA. With Rudy Gobert, the defensive player of the year from a year ago, he is absolutely balling. Devontae Graham's putting in work. Jordan Clarkson's putting in work. You know what? Mike Conley Jr. has started to come back a little bit. The Utah Jazz are just something else this year. The Utah Jazz are something else. We gotta keep our eyes open for the Utah Jazz because they could put in some work in the West. But you know what? We know who the top two seeds in the West are. We know who the top two seeds in the West are. We know who the top two seeds in the West are. There's no debating. We already know who the top two seeds are, right? There's two teams left that we haven't mentioned. We haven't mentioned the Lakers and we haven't mentioned the Celtics. So which seed is going to be which, right? For me, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I got the Lakers second, and I got the Celtics. I got the Clippers first. So LeBron James and the Lakers. LeBron James and the Lakers for me are the second best team in the NBA. Up until Kawhi Leonard and Paul George got injured, for me, the Clippers showed me enough to say that they were the best team in the NBA. Up until then, right now, I kind of look silly for saying this, but this is, remember, I made this list before this weekend passed. So I wrote this down and I even looked at the power rankings. So I had pretty much majority of the power rankings similar until the Lakers Clippers part. I thought the Clippers have surpassed the Lakers based on what I've seen the past couple of weeks. But you know what? I might be wrong. I might be wrong because in my opinion, the Lakers are still a juggernaut of a team. I think last week they were ranked first. I think the Lakers should be first. But you know what? As long as Kawhi Leonard and Paul George cannot pass the hump, and they will be forever haunted by what happened last year in the playoffs, they will be forever in the shadows of the Lakers. But for this week, I'm going to give the Clippers the #1 seed in the power rankings, and I'm going to give the Lakers the #2 seed in the power rankings, with the Utah Jazz as the #3 seed. That's just my rankings for tonight. And you know what, guys? Hopefully you guys enjoyed this rank show. We're out of here, ladies and gentlemen. Have yourselves a great night, and we're out of here. Peace.